Okay, all right, we'll get started then. This is Amalia Ochoa speaking from ICLEI. And so welcome to you all. Thank you for joining us today in what is now the fourth webinar that we've organized for the observer cities that are following the Eccentric project. And we are meeting today to have a closer look at some of the measures that are being implemented in the project on walking and cycling. I'm joined by Paula and Anna from ICLEI, and Anna especially will be taking over the facilitation after the first two presentations. And please excuse any technical issues. We just, the three of us are working remotely today because it was decided last minute to actually do some work on our server and the internet. So we have no internet connection at the office. So we had to leave the office to run the webinar. So it's good that the internet is available from our homes. So just very briefly, because I think you all know Eccentric quite well, so I'm just going to run through this very briefly, what the Eccentric project aims to do. So basically, it's a demonstration project, and a number of different measures on different areas regarding sustainable mobility and transport are being implemented. These are focusing on suburban districts especially. So that's one of the sort of unique features of the project. And we are also looking at clean urban freight logistics in urban centers. That's a second sort of unique and innovative, I guess, if you like, part of this project. And we want to obviously achieve a lot of things regarding sustainability and also just better mobility in terms of less road accidents and congestion on our roads. And through this, we're trying to strengthen accessibility for all citizens, especially vulnerable groups, livability, public transport in general, and multimodal way of travels. And also fostering our local economy and as well efficiency and environmental performance of urban freight distribution. So how are we doing this? Well, we have 5 partner cities: Madrid, Stockholm, Munich, Turku, and Ruse. And the 5 cities are implementing different kinds of measures in what we call living labs. So they've taken districts of their cities, so just very close to the city center, and they're implementing, a number of different measures regarding different thematic areas in these living labs. So we've got the thematic areas here listed on the left-hand side. So other than walking and cycling, which we're looking at today, we have mobility as a service for all and by all, inclusive urban planning, new parking policies, and mobility management, which we looked a bit at in the last webinar. Then there's also efficient and clean public transport solutions and clean vehicles and logistics. So we have, you can see here, the number of different measures in each city. And for these measures now, we have some more information online on the Eccentric website, which is based within the CIVITAS EU website. So you can have a look at some, or find out a bit more information about quite a few of these measures. This is basically in the form of different fact sheets. We don't have all the fact sheets done for all the 50 measures, but more than half of them are now available online. In addition to the demonstration activities, we have 4 different, what we call horizontal activities in the project. One of these is dissemination and communication, evaluation, so evaluation of the measures and how they're performing. Cross-fertilization, so this is between the different thematic areas. And the final one is replication, which ICLEI is responsible for, and that's what we're sort of trying to foster through these webinars. That we involve cities that are interested in the project, that are not partners in the project, through the Observer City Group, to get a closer insight into the implementation activities and see if in the future they would like to replicate these in their cities. So yeah, this is basically a part of a series of webinars that we're organizing during the course of the project. And it's really, basically, it's a chance to, yeah, like I said, get an insight into what's happening with a selected number of measures, and ask the questions you like to the people that are responsible for implementing these, which you will be hearing from just a bit later. So I think you've all maybe seen the program. It's pretty straightforward. So following my presentation, we'll have Anna Bastian from the city of Stockholm. She's basically the lead in the walking and cycling thematic area of the project. So she's going to explain a little bit more about how that, yeah, the different types of measures in that work package or thematic area. And then we will proceed to have 4 short presentations on 4 different measures. And following those presentations, we'll have just an open round of questions and answers. So yeah, of course, everyone then is welcome to join. Maybe some of the measure leaders also have questions to each other. Yeah, that should be, yeah, like fairly flexible and open. Just don't be shy. Okay, so now I would like to pass the floor to Anna Bastian from Stockholm. I think I'm going to be flicking through your slides.
That's
Anna?
right.
Yeah. So I'll just...
Yeah. Welcome to the walking and cycling part of Eccentric. My name is Anna Bastian, working for the city of Stockholm. And I'd first like to introduce you to the objectives of this work package. We're trying to achieve broadly 2 things. First is to increase the safety of walking and cycling, and the other is to increase the share, so the number of people and the number of trips for walking and cycling. And we're doing that by different approaches. Nearly all of them have an emphasis on including different stakeholders, and there's also some technology measures focusing on new software and analysis tools, and we're also focusing on benefits to vulnerable groups, for example, children or disabled people. What you see here is a list of the different measures that are working in this work package. So on the left you see, as I said, some focus on increasing the share of walking and cycling, and some focus on increasing the safety of walking and cycling. So what you hear from today is one of the measures in, no, next please.
Sorry.
One of the measures in Madrid, where they're working in a suburban area of Madrid for improving the conditions there, the spatial planning and the walking and cycling conditions. You'll hear from Turku, where they're focusing on making the walking and cycling paths safer all year round. Then there are measures that are not included today. For example, we're working on increasing the uptake of electric bikes or developing different software safety. So, for example, mapping geographically where the safety hotspots are. And today you will hear from Ruse, Bulgaria, about their work on providing better crosswalks and sidewalks. And then finally, there's a measure from Stockholm that's not included today, and that's about making the construction sites for cyclists safer and better. Okay? And the goals in this project, or the expected impacts rather, are basically to increase the share of walking and cycling, to make it safer, to make it more attractive, and to reduce injuries and deaths. And then in Stockholm specifically, we're also trying to make e-bikes more attractive and more widely used. And then we have different quantitative targets of how we want to increase the share and so forth. So that's it from me. Handing over to the introduction of the speakers, I believe.
Yes.
Yes, thank you, Anne. I can take over from here. So thank you both Amalia and Anne for introducing us to Eccentric and to the work package 2 about the walking and cycling. I hope you can hear me well. So we will shortly hear first from the city of Ruse about two measures, measure 4.3 and 4.4, about providing secure pedestrian crosswalks and safe sidewalks with cycling capability towards the city center. So we are going to talk first about safety, and then we will hear about the increase of modal share for walking and cycling from Turku and Madrid. But this a bit later. For now, I will pass the microphone to Nikolai. Nikolai, can you hear me?
Hello, yes.
Yes, can you please share your screen?
Okay. I had to press the up arrow.
Yes,
Yes.
that's the one.
Yeah. Okay, we can see your screen now.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Hello to everybody from me. My name is Nico Simeonov, and I am the Ruse site manager for the Eccentric project. I'm also working as a measure leader and an expert in both measures that concern the walking and cycling in our district, the laboratory area that we chose in our city. So I will now briefly present to you measure 4.3, which is for providing secure pedestrian crosswalks, and measure 4.4, which is about the safe sidewalks with cycling facilities towards the city center. I will present them in one presentation, as this is actually the way that we are implementing both measures in our city as one complete measure. Meaning that we're doing the planning and research phase together, doing actually the contracting of the design of the crosswalks and sidewalks together, and we will lately do maybe a common contract for the construction of the sidewalks and the crosswalks again. So first, let me say a few words about our laboratory area that we chose in our city and why did we choose exactly this part of our city. So it is called Bluebird District. It is located in the southwestern part of our city. It is a relatively new neighborhood. The population living in that area is more than 15% of the total population of the city. So we're talking about approximately 26,000 people. And on a surface of 2.12 square kilometers, that means that we have a density of over 12,000 inhabitants per square kilometer. So, as I said, this is a relatively new neighborhood in our city, and mainly young people choose to live there. So we have a rising population in the last few years because the younger people are allowed to buy cheaper apartments there. It is more in the outskirts of the city, so the apartments are cheaper and better suit their needs. So why did we choose to implement these measures in our laboratory area? First of all, we can say that the state of the pedestrian infrastructure in this district is in poor condition, which makes people trying to use the roads as walking paths and they don't go on the sidewalks. They cross wherever they think they can, and this presents a very high risk of road accidents involving children and people with disabilities, which eventually leads to injuries and fatalities. Actually, most of the people with disabilities avoid walking on streets in general due to the lack of this basic infrastructure that would allow them to move freely in the neighborhood. Actually, if you come to this district, you may think that there are no people with disabilities living there because they don't go on the street at all. So, just as an example why we believe that these both measures are very important for our city, I will just show you a few pictures of the current state of the sidewalks and crosswalks in the district. These pictures were actually taken last summer when we did this analysis of the state of the crosswalks in the district. Here you can see that the state of the sidewalks and the crosswalks is very bad, and this leads to people crossing the boulevard wherever they like. Here you see there is no crosswalk, but people prefer to go between the cars and to reach directly their points of interest. Here you see the bus stop. These people are walking directly on the boulevard, crossing the area between their blocks of flats and the commercial zone in that district. Here you see that the sidewalks are in bad condition, and this creates problems for the pedestrians. So the chosen solution that we will implement in our district, remote district, is to implement new innovative crosswalks that will have several features in order to increase the sense of security of pedestrians when crossing the streets and boulevards in the district. So our intention is to build raised crossing paths, to include also tactile paving for the people with disabilities. We will have LED lights and LED road signs that will be used in order to warn drivers that there are pedestrians crossing or have the intention of crossing the street. So on the top right corner of the screen, I'm presenting here one of the crossings that we will build in the next 2 or 3 months. So we have this LED lights that go along the whole crosswalk, and we will introduce infrared detection sensors that will know when a person is trying to cross the street, and when the person comes close to this detection sensor, the whole crosswalk will start blinking. The LED lights will blink in the direction that the person is crossing the street, and so that the drivers can see them well in advance when reaching that crosswalk. We will also introduce video surveillance on the crosswalks. Actually, under Eccentric, we did a design of 5 secure pedestrian crosswalks, and we will pilot at least 2 of them, meaning that we will construct during the duration of the project 2 crosswalks in order to analyze the effect, how well this new solution is accepted by the population. Just to mention that apart from the infrared detection sensors, people will be able to activate the lights of the crosswalks by a button, which will have a tactile arrow for the people that have seeing disabilities, and this is in order to avoid any problems with the infrared detection sensors. So on the top left corner of the screen you can see such an example from another city. So the two places that we will build these new crossing walks are chosen in order to be with very high traffic of cars and pedestrians and cyclists. So here on the top right corner of the screen you can see one of the crosswalks that is between one main boulevard leading to the city center of Ruse and another main boulevard coming directly from the center of the Bluebird District. So this is one of the main paths of pedestrians in the district that will lead them to the center of our city. It is close to the railway station and the bus station in the city. So these are the reasons that we chose this exact spot. The other one is in the very heart of the Druzhba neighborhood. It is close to one of the biggest schools on the Balkan Peninsula. It is a place where over 2,000 students study, and it is close to the commercial part of the district where we have a lot of shops and other points of interest that attract a lot of people, not only from the neighborhood but also from other parts of the city. So we chose these exact spots not only through our analysis of the situation in the neighborhood, but also by having questionnaires, doing questionnaires with the people living there in the district, and this is actually a solution that they asked us to do. The other part of the project, this is measure 4.4, is to build secure pedestrian sidewalks with cycling facilities, again leading to the city center. So I'm not sure if you see the arrow that I'm pointing, but this is the main part of the Bluebird District. On the top left corner is the first pedestrian crosswalk that we are going to build, and the other is right about here. And we also chose the location of the new sidewalks based on the same criteria, to be on streets and boulevards that are used the most by the people living in the district. And so we have 4 sections that we designed for the new sidewalks with cycling facilities, and under Eccentric we will do the first section, and if we see that this solution is well accepted by the population, we are planning to include this in the budget for the next few years and to construct the other parts. So the solution for the sidewalks includes to introduce this innovative LED lightning of the street. We will have these LED lights, which will be used for the alley lighting. We will have 2 meters wide cycling facilities, cycling lanes, both directions. And the cycling lane will be separated from the walking part of the sidewalk via tactile paving. So what has been done till now? So first of all, during the planning and research phase, we had to do many meetings with experts in the field of construction, design of crosswalks and sidewalks. We received major support from our partner, Club Sustainable Development of Civil Society Sofia. And under measure 2.11, which is another measure that we do here in Ruse, we did a lot of seminars and trainings and events for presenting the idea of the new measures that we were going to implement in the city. This is the way we received the support from the community, from the citizens living in the neighborhood, from the NGOs, from the schools, and etc. So, as I said, we did a thorough analysis of the situation of the pedestrian infrastructure in the district, and also did a best practice research on safe crosswalks and sidewalks designs. We did this set of dissemination activities. So we had the support from the community for the chosen locations and for the implementation of the new crosswalks and sidewalks. Actually, we are planning right now next meeting with the senior citizens living in Bluebird District in order to explain to them the progress that we have made in the project, and they want to know to what extent did we actually done the solutions that they proposed to us, meaning if we agreed on their recommendations for the exact spots of the new crosswalks and sidewalks and the actual design of them. So in the last 6 months, we conducted the public procurement for choosing the contractor for the design of the crosswalks, and actually this design schemes that I'm showing to you are pretty fresh. We received them yesterday, so maybe in a few weeks we will finalize the contract for the design of the crosswalks and sidewalks, and we will continue with the construction, which is planned for the beginning of 2019. So for the challenges that we faced, there were mainly two: to identify the most suitable locations of the new crosswalks and sidewalks, and to receive the acceptance of the citizens for the proposed solutions. So our solutions and recommendations that we have to other cities that plan to do such measures as our example is to first carefully analyze the crosswalks and sidewalks in terms of convenience and safety of the citizens, to analyze their actual behavior, to actually go to the district and watch how people move across the streets, and to identify their preferred paths of movement around the district in order to properly tackle the problem with people crossing wherever they like and presenting high risk for road accidents. So in order to come up with the best solutions, you should meet with the citizens, organize different events, questionnaires, in order to have their support during the planning and the actual implementation of the measure. And actually, the solution that we chose for the crosswalks with the LED lights and the infrared sensors is not that new to the world. We actually found it on the CIVITAS website. It was from another city that have introduced it on their streets, and we thought that it would be great to have it here in Ruse, and we're yet to see the results and how the people like it. So in brief, that was my presentation for both measures. If anybody has any questions, I will be happy to answer.
Thank you, Nikolai. If there are any questions, please feel free to ask them. We have 5 minutes for dedicated questions for these two very interesting measures related to walking and safe walking and cycling.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
From Zagreb, I have one question regarding the crossings. Did you contact maybe with people with disability? What are their needs?
Can you hear me?
Did you contact in the consultation process? Did you contact with people with disability to see their needs?
Yes, I can hear, but can you hear me speaking?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. So actually, yes, we did this, and not only in this measure, but also in our other measure concerning the updating of the transport routes of the public transport in the district. Actually, this was one of the target groups that we wanted really to involve during the research and planning phase, so that they feel that we think about them and want to make convenient pedestrian infrastructure for them. So yes, we have included them in this planning process in order to know their needs, to gather their proposals, and to have their acceptance for our measures.
Yeah, good. Especially when we are speaking about the lights on the intersections, they are rather sensitive on that. So we have some experience from Zagreb. Mm-hmm. They complain for some lights that were implemented on sidewalks, crosswalks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand.
Any other questions for Nikolai? I would have a comment, more of a comment and then a question, if possible. So you mentioned, if you can go back one slide, you mentioned the two challenges that you had. So first one was finding the most suitable location for these crosswalks and sidewalks, and then gaining the acceptance of the citizens. But somehow I think these two things go together, because I'm very sure that citizens do feel the need of having safe crosswalks and safe sidewalks, and you have probably received some complaints about this, or about the lack of this type of infrastructure for them. So maybe you can work with the citizens to understand where the most suitable locations could be, which of the locations could be the most suitable for them, because they also have some good stories to tell you, I'm pretty sure, about where they would feel the need. So just a suggestion to also tackle the challenges, so both challenges in the same approach.
Yeah, this is actually what we did.
Yeah. So Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much, Nikolai. I think it's time for us to move on. I would just like to mention the fact that this webinar is recorded, and I hope you don't have anything against it. So we would like you to know that all the presentations and the questions and answers are being recorded. And we are ready to move on to the next presentation, to Juha Jukela from the city of Turku. Juha, can you hear me? Juha?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now I can hear you.
Okay.
Can you share the screen?
Yeah, just a minute.
So we will hear about easy, safe and comfortable cycling and walking around the year from Turku. Yes,
Okay.
we can now see the screen.
Great, great. And remove this perhaps. Yeah.
Maybe speak up a little bit.
Okay, okay. So hello, my name is Juha Jokela. I'm a traffic planner in the city of Turku and has been in charge of this measure in Turku. We had Anette Korkeakangas, who was responsible for or was doing the most of the actual work on this project, but now she changed jobs, so I'm not that familiar as she was, but I hope I can explain the measure. So this was the topic of our measure, and then why did we choose this measure? So Turku is around 200,000 people, and the region is a bit over 300,000 people, and the city structure is quite dense. So we have people all around the city center. The city center is the red dot in the middle of where there is Kauppatori, and we have calculated that over 90% of the people living in Turku are within 30 minutes of cycling distance to the city center, and we have large student population, and then there's a growing fleet of e-bikes, so there is a big potential in Turku for increasing the number of cyclists. And especially in the winter time, the cyclist amounts drop quite significantly, since in Turku at the moment we have roughly 23% of the people who cycle year round, when it is in Copenhagen it's around 75%. So of course the climate is a bit different from Copenhagen, but I don't think their winter is that nice either. So I think we have a potential to raise the winter cycling quite a lot. In Turku, the climate in winter is quite often that we don't have that much snow, but we have icy conditions. So in the nighttime the temperature goes below zero and it freezes, and in the daytime when it is sunny, or actually in the daytime it quite often goes above zero. So it is quite often that in the morning it's very icy conditions, and in the afternoon it's not that much. So ice is a big issue on cycling and safety of winter cycling. We did a cycling barometer in the beginning of this project, and we asked about how people feel about cycling in Turku and what is especially what should we improve on winter cycling, and the results are shown here. So the biggest concerns were de-icing measures and removing wet snow. So the worst thing is that when the snow melts during the daytime and then it's not plowed away and then it freezes, so there are like tracks that are very difficult to cycle. So we tried to do something with this measure. And then there was in the cycling barometer still there was a big support for developing of cycling. So 96% of the inhabitants that were interviewed for the barometer supported the development of cycling. And then we did, in the beginning, we did benchmarking. So we visited city of Helsinki, which had done new methods on winter cycling maintenance for 1 or 2 years before that. So we got their experience, and then we visited VTI in Linköping, Sweden, and then the city of Stockholm, which had longer experiences, and we got a lot of information about what to do and what is important and what not to do. So then we had a few different methods that we assessed, and we had a project group that we decided as a group to use the sweep salting that had been done in Helsinki and Sweden, many cities. So the idea is that this machine first brushes the snow away, and then in the back of the car the salt was placed on the cycle lane or cycle way, and then it should be free of snow and not icy. So this was also a group decision because we had some concerns about the method, about the environmental impacts and impacts on some minor issues that we didn't really know the impacts on. So the benchmarking was really helpful. And then we also did a group decision on a pilot area, and the pilot area is in the middle of the city of Turku, and it has our biggest cyclist flows. So there were, of course, some concerns about whether the method would work on special like stone paving, for example. We were quite sure that on asphalt it would work, but on the stone surface we were not that sure, but everything worked out well. So we did a group decision on pilot area also, and we had a couple of or few alternatives where to put the pilot area, but this was chosen because of the biggest flows and also about the good enough infrastructure. So this is the picture before and after. So on the left you can see the winter before the pilot. It was very usual that with the normal like plowing of the snow and dispersing sand on the cycle way, you do not get all the snow away, and then it freezes and it's quite difficult to cycle. And also there is a lot of pedestrians on the area, so basically on days like this on the left you could not raise your foot from the pavement, and it's very slippery. And on the right you can see it's after the pilot area, so it's free of snow and it's not slippery. We got so we did this for last winter, and now we are doing the second winter, and we have gotten a lot of positive feedback. Last year we gathered a lot of feedback on this pilot area and asked for feedback, and also the local cycling like club did assess the how did it work, the pilot, comparing to the normal winter maintenance. And as you can see, 65% of the feedback was positive, and I think normally it's very rare that we get like a positive feedback, because if everything works nobody says anything, but if it doesn't work we get negative feedback. So this was very unusual to get mostly positive feedback and mostly like thank yous about doing the project. The main emphasis has been on the winter cycling and the sweep salting, but we have also done some other things. So we have measured the condition of larger cycle network on the in the whole city, and then about where the asphalt is in bad shape and where to repave next, for example. And then we are doing also updating the instruction on temporary traffic arrangements, but these are smaller projects than the sweep salting up to now. And then the last slide is the lessons learned. So cooperation is very important during the planning project, and I think when we had people from environmental section and traffic planning and maintenance section, there were different concerns, and the discussions were important that we were able to convince people that this can be done, and for example, the trees don't die in the riverside because of the using of salt, which we don't usually use a lot in Turku. So cooperation during the planning project, and then the first winter was really a learning process for the contractor also. So it was for example the need of resources for contractors. They thought that they need a lot of more resources than normal winter maintenance, but it still was a surprise, perhaps a bit. How much do they need resources? And then during the first few months, they really learned how to do the new method efficiently. And one comment was that if they for example don't do maintenance on one day, then the next day is much harder. So they should be looking ahead and seeing what kind of weather forecasts there are, and so what goes around comes around, and they can minimize their own job by being proactive. Then sweep salting is more expensive than normal winter maintenance. There was also some concerns about this during the planning because we really didn't know. There was quite a bit of change on the information we got. Some cities were much more expensive than other ones using this method. So it's in Turku experience, it's 2 or 3 times as expensive as our normal winter maintenance. So of course we need more money for the winter maintenance if we are going to continue with this, but due to the positive feedback, it looks pretty good at the moment. Also, we are trying new method this winter. We didn't do last winter, so we are using sweeping and using of wet sand instead of salt, and it's a bit cheaper, and it's also interesting to see how it works. So it is done on a different area. On the picture you see here, on the right side we are using the sweep salting, and on the left side we are using the wet sand instead of salt. So it's interesting to see how they compare to each other. A little bit of disappointment perhaps is that we were hoping that we would get good information on how the method has impacted, for example, cyclist flows and especially the accidents and slippings in the area, but the accident data is very difficult to get because a lot of pedestrian and cycling slippings are one people slipping there and there is no other party, so if they are not really badly hurt, they go away and don't tell anybody, so this is difficult for us to get this data, because when we would like to expand the method in the coming years, on a wider area, it would be of course helpful to see what kind of impacts it has been on reducing accidents and increasing the traffic flows. Okay, that was my presentation.
Well, thank you, Juha. Very interesting indeed. I'm sure there are cities, follower cities, that have winter problems also, like Turku. So, do you have any questions for Juha? I hear a lot of noise on the background.
Yeah, I've unmuted all participants, so anyone can ask a question.
Hello?
Yes.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
I am curious about one thing. I think everybody can hear you. Yes. Yes. I would like to ask you something because I'm very curious about this 31% of negative feedback. I know you highlighted the 65% of positive feedback, but I'm curious what people said about it and why is it that we have 31% of negative feedback? Why would it? It's still a high percentage.
Yes, I think normally it's more than 95% of negative feedback. But I think because when things work, people don't really comment. But the negative feedback, of course, there is something that sometimes there could be that the maintenance is not done. For example, if the weather is really horrible and it's a lot of snow, like those days that we have perhaps 5 days per winter that you have very much snow, so we don't have enough capacity to do everything ready in the morning time, or if it's heavy snowfall, so it might be something like that. And on the salt, there was some complaints, for example, about the salt coming into apartments from the shoes of pedestrians. So these were, but we thought still that they were quite minor. And for example, on the media and newspapers, the feedback has been very, very positive.
It's very helpful always.
Yeah.
How about the pedestrians? You talked a lot about the cyclists and the cycling lanes. How big is the modern share of pedestrians in Turku?
I think it's almost something like 30%, and cycling is something like 10%.
Mm-hmm.
So I think also on the negative feedback, some feedback was because the method was used for a 3-meter wide area, so the whole cycling lane was removed of snow, and then there was part of the sidewalk also removed, but because there are stairs and doors and things like that, refurbishment and those things, so we were not able to do the whole sidewalk. So some negative feedback was because of the cycling lane and part of the sidewalk was in a good shape, so the pedestrians came to in the way of cyclists at some points. But still, the riverside is very much used for example, on winter, on weekends, it's very much used for outdooring. I don't know, recreation.
Yeah.
So
for leisure walking and
and jogging and things like that. So I think it was also very good for pedestrians.
Is it snow? Hello? Yeah?
Hello?
Yeah. Do you have snow in Turku now?
At the moment, no.
Okay. Thank you.
But we are expecting perhaps for next week.
once Christmas will be here, so we'll.
So it is welcome.
Yes, yes, very much.
Yeah, maybe one question. Did people reflect on the sand instead of to have sand on the cycling lane? I think it's not maybe so secure. Maybe affect on security sand. What is your opinion on that?
Sorry, can you repeat?
To put sand on the cycling lane, wet sand you mentioned.
Yes, yes.
And does this affect the security of cyclists?
You mean like the tires going break? Or?
Yeah.
Yes.
To fall and I don't know.
So the idea of wet sand was, I think, it was the idea that with a brush we can remove the snow, and there is, like I shown on this picture, on the left side we do not get ice, and then the wet sand is so that it freezes there, and the sand is very small. I don't remember the size of the sand, but it should not break the tires.
Yeah, okay.
Or make the pedestrians slip.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Okay, if there are no more questions for Juha, we can proceed and move on to Madrid. Thank you very much, Juha.
Thank you.
So the next presentation will be from Carlos, I think, or Rafael.
Yes. Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello. We will hear about enabling cycling outside the city. Oh. Can you share? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Hello. Well, my name is Rafa Ruiz, and I'm with Carlos Corral. Carlos Corral is the measure leader for these two measures of Eccentric project, and we both work in the environmental and mobility government area of Madrid municipality. And we make the presentation together. First, we'd like to introduce, why we choose this laboratory area. It's two districts of Madrid. Madrid has 21 districts and 3 million people is the population. And the population of these two districts is 10% of the total population of the city, 300,000 persons living in Puente de Vallecas and Villa de Vallecas, these two districts, which are in the periphery of Madrid, in the southeastern area of Madrid. And why we chose this laboratory area? Well, mainly because most trips going from this area, these two districts, to the center of the city, are made by private cars. Only 53% are made through public transport, and well, pedestrian mobility is about 40% of internal trips in the area. But there is a limited supply of public transport, and quality standards for pedestrian and cycling modes are low in this area. And also, it's interesting that there was a big infrastructure project for pedestrians in Villa de Vallecas in 2001, when a big boulevard, the Federico García Lorca, which is the name of a famous, very good poet, Spanish poet, Federico García Lorca Boulevard, which is one of the main walking infrastructures in Madrid. It's 1.5 kilometers long, and it includes 3 subway stations and several bus lanes. So it's a good infrastructure in the historical center of Villa de Vallecas, and connects with the new development, enlargement of Vallecas, and introduce massively traffic calming measures around this area. Okay. And so, which are the promises for this different new mobility, for a new city model for people? Well, we think these infrastructures for green mobility modes have to be focused on effectiveness. Travel time has to be taken into account. Also on continuity, considering the connectivity without barriers for disabled persons and safe spaces, and kindness of these green infrastructures, considering that they have to be living spaces and friendly environments, if possible to include nature-based solutions with the presence of vegetation, of permeable pavements, to make also these neighborhoods and the city more resilient to climate change effects of heat waves, and which are very serious problems in Madrid in summertime. And also they have to be multifunctional in combining travel trips with walking, with recreation, with sports, so that all these infrastructures can provide to all these functions. And well, in 2001, as we said, these infrastructure works were developed and
prioritize the access from buses and between the different neighborhoods via Vallecas.
Yes.
Like this.
So buses and taxis have priority to enter the historic center in Vallecas through this boulevard, Federico García Lorca Boulevard, and through the design of bus lanes and public transport lanes, and to reduce the space for private cars. And also the mobility station connecting subway and regional trains was created in 2009. So in this picture you can see this area of Sierra de Guadalupe, which is an interconnection station of different travel modes, mainly subway and regional trains. And so also a new bus terminal facilitates intermodality with metro and urban train in access to all also important centers in these two districts, which is the Polytechnic University in Vallecas, and also a new hospital which provides medical services to the eastern districts in Madrid, and also new activities which were developed in the surroundings. So, which are the aims? We focused thinking of eccentric project in order to improve walking and cycling modes in a safe way in the laboratory area. Well, mainly to improve the quality of pedestrian routes in a peripheral district, to get a nearby city, and to increase the modal share for walking, cycling, and public transport. Also, to make public space habitable and accessible for everyone. And this aim is much connected with another measure of eccentric project, which is measure 2.8, working with vulnerable groups, promoting cycling trips in schools, in children going to school, cycling or walking, and also to make streets and itineraries accessible to elder people, to vulnerable people, which is measure 2.8 in eccentric project. Also, an aim was to connect pedestrian areas of the same district or with other districts surrounding, and to generate a space destined to different modes of movement and promote active and sustainable modes, and to develop these actions in cooperation with neighbors and local stakeholders. So our workshop was developed, also connected with measure 2.8 with vulnerable groups, in order to design and to define which were the the actions to be developed through these walking and cycling itineraries in the laboratory area. And in Madrid we have a cycling plan for the whole town, which was approved in 2008, but it has recently been reviewed and updated. It was much thought thinking only of the central area, the 6 districts in the center of Madrid, but now in this review and update, also the connections between peripheral districts and the center of the city has been taken into consideration. And so here you can see the definition of cycling network in the laboratory areas in Vallecas in this review of the Madrid cycling plan, which has been approved in last year in June. And now going with the actions defined in the project, in the Eccentric project, one of them is the Paseo de los Miradores, the viewpoints itinerary walk, which connects 4 big green areas, big parks in Madrid with very nice views of the city because they are elevated green areas, but which also connects equipment, sport equipment, schools, high schools, the university, and also it has a walking itinerary and a cycling itinerary. And here you can see the itinerary and pedestrian and cycling itinerary, which structures the sustainable mobility of Vallecas. And it's a new axis of connecting from north to south this district, which also complements the eastern-western axis of connection for transport in the 2 districts, which was the Albufera Avenue area. Now here you have some solutions. The route was divided into areas of study where proposed solutions for public space are adapted to their particular characteristic, always considering the introduction of vegetation, of nature-based solutions, and the restriction of the space for private cars, and promoting public transport and walking and cycling. And the second action is the planning of an e-mobility station, Sierra de Guadalupe, which is a distribution node towards attraction centers, the Polytechnical University, this hospital, the industrial area, and the connection with the historical center of Villa de Vallecas. So we call it the star because of the shape of, you can see, Sierra de Guadalupe is the center of this, where this mobility station will be located. And it's an intermodal area with several public transports. These infrastructures were developed in 2009, as we said before, for bus, subway, and regional trains. And it has replicability with other eccentric measures, with the mobility station of München Freiheit, and it can improve journeys to these attractor centers, hospitals, university, historical center, and also the industrial area where 6,000 persons work. And the idea is to design the space for the combination of several mobility modes: electric vehicles for sharing vehicles, scooters, cargo and standard electric bicycles, in connection with the existing public transport modes already existing in this intermodal area: bus, metro, and train. And well, this idea of promoting sustainable mobility modes with special attention to electric vehicles is included in one of the main plans for the environmental policy in Madrid City, which is the Plan A, we call it, the Air Quality and Climate Change Plan. It's a matter of health, of public health, because 40% of the emissions of nitrogen oxides, which is the main pollutant emission here in Madrid and a health problem, come from transport road. So we have to promote all these zero emission mobility modes. And connected with this second action of the STAR of Sierra de Guadalupe, a low-cost and reversible intervention was developed during the European Mobility Week last September, and so we made a wider sidewalk and a segregated bike lane connecting Sierra de Guadalupe with UPM, which is the Polytechnical University, is here in the western of the district of Villa de Vallecas, and it was a low-cost action which has promoted walking. The students had to wait 10 minutes to 1/4 of an hour for a bus station for a trip which is only 800 meters distance, no, Carlos?
It's only
a short distance.
4 minutes to connect it.
It's been an easy way to promote active mobility with young university students.
And the next year we developed the construction of the new pavement and the way to the cyclists to connect the university with Sierra, the mobility hub.
Sierra de Guadalupe.
Sierra de Guadalupe.
Okay, and so another action plan is the connection with from Sierra de Guadalupe with the historical center of Villa de Vallecas, because streets have very little green areas, a very dense urban area, and so to improve this walking itinerary from Sierra de Guadalupe to Villa de Vallecas Center, improving crossings and improving widening the sidewalks, introducing nature-based solutions like vegetation in the streets and all this kind of action.
When before the practice, the intervention in Arboleda, we make a workshop with the stakeholder and local people from the two districts, from urbanism and development, urban and mobility, and introduce this type of technical measures to discuss about then the possibility to extend the communication between the people from this type of measures, and introduce the first in Arboleda Street.
Okay. So that's it. If you have any questions, we'll be glad to try to answer them.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Rafa.
Thank you, Rafael and Carlos. So we quickly moved from very cold and snow to very hot and nature-based solutions further down to the south of Europe. If there are any questions for Madrid, please feel free to ask them.
I have one question.
Yes.
Your implementation or precisely your intervention on the road, paving a road and so on. How it is how is it solved on the national level? Do you have some guidance on that, or national rules, regulations?
You mean about bike lanes or?
And bike lanes and pedestrian crossing, because I saw green color for crossing the, let's say this one, and this yellow one on the street and so on.
Okay. 1 month ago, we approved a new ordinance from the city of Madrid about the integrated mobility between different means of transport. We introduced the 30 kilometers hours in all local roads from every city, and in this site it's possible to introduce traffic calming measures to implement the solution to reduce the speed of the car and facilitate the active modes, walking and cycling in all the local street. Is the 80% of the street in Madrid 30 kilometers hour, and in this the authority from Spain last week announced the change in the regulation from Spain to introduce this type of limit
measures,
regulation, yes, from all the cities.
Yes. So in Madrid, the Sustainable Mobility Ordinance is already approved in last month, but in Spain it's going to be approved in future months. And the regulation will be a speed limit of 30 kilometers per hour in all only one lane street, or 2 lanes if they are both directions. So it facilitates all these kinds of traffic calm measures like crossings.
And the competence about this type of design of the street with special condition of mobility in local street is the competence from the municipalities. And it's possible to introduce
these regulations
of design of the streets.
Okay, thank you.
Hello?
Yes, hello?
Hello. I would like to ask a question for our colleague in Madrid. I would like to know the acceptance of the population to these new implementations of the cycling tracks.
The acceptance, you mean?
Yes.
Yes. Well, in Madrid we have a lack of bike infrastructure, and there is a demand of more segregated bike lanes, and we have a lot of work to do, yes, still. Yes. But well, there was a kind of controversy because some cyclists associations were against these segregated bike lanes, saying that cycling should be integrated with cars in all the city. But really they are a minority, and most cyclists in Madrid want safer infrastructures like segregated or shared bike lanes with cars in calm streets.
Yes. it's possible to improve the people who use the bicycle in the local street, but we recognize that we have to make many work from here to introduce more segregated bicycle lanes. We have 40 kilometers in 2 years, but we have many times to connect the periphery like this, like Vallecas, the district, with the main central area.
Also, well, in Madrid, a very big 600 hectares zero emission area, well, not zero, low emission area, which is called Madrid Central, has just been approved only 2 weeks ago, and it's a controversy measure, but necessary to reduce pollutants emissions and greenhouse gases emissions. And in Gran Via, which is the main and most famous street in the very center of Madrid, 2 car lanes have been suppressed and given to spread the sidewalk and to bike lanes, and most people have understood this action as necessary to improve life quality in the city.
Okay. Just one question more.
Yes.
I would like to know if these segregated bike lanes came from the peripheral areas of Madrid into the center of Madrid. If it is been easier to you to create these lines from the cities that are most for people who works in Madrid and goes to sleep to distant areas of the center of Madrid. How do you solve these connections?
You mean from the peripheric to the center, like? Yes. Travels by bikes. We have a distance of about 8 kilometers or 10 kilometers, considering what is useful for cycling to make these trips cycling. In other way, you have to combine with other public transport ways, such as regional trains or subways, if distances are longer. Madrid is a big city, 3 million people living there, so distances in several districts must be too long to cover them cycling. But also about I think 4 years ago, the public biking service started in Madrid. Now it was a private service before, played by a private company, and now it is served by the municipal transport from the municipality, EMT, and it uses electric bikes, so it facilitates longer distance trips with these electric bikes. But they are located in the center of the area, and now they are going to spread a little to peripheric districts. But we are in the process of spreading these electric bike stations, which might promote longer trips with bikes.
Yes, and now we in 2 months we made a private system of bicycle free floating without fixed point to park the bicycle, and to introduce the active mobility from cycling in the mobility and local mobility to connect the residential areas with the centers activities, but with less than 5 or 6 kilometers from the longer distance is to to connect the complementary system with bicycle and public transport. And because of that, we introduced the project of a mobility system in Villa de Vallecas to connect it with a big system for public transport, a metropolitan system.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
One question for me related to this commuting from peripheral district. Are you allowed to take the bicycle on the regional trains?
Yes, yes. Any time of the day, you can introduce your bike in the regional trains. The problem is there are new trains, new models with a special place for bicycles, and there are also older trains which don't have this special place for bicycles. So in peak hours, like early in the morning or coming back from work, you might have problem with your bike because too many people are traveling in the regional buses in the old ones. So, but you're allowed anytime. And in subways, on weekends, you can use your bike any hour. And from Monday to Friday, only in different periods of the day, you can use your bike also.
Okay, thank you.
I cycle in Madrid, and I combine subway and regional transport, and it's very, very serious.
And I the same.
Carlos too.
I have a metropolitan travel, and we park bicycle in a station out of Madrid in the periphery west, and I work many times in Villa de Vallecas in the periphery east, and I use private bicycle and into the Madrid central public bicycle.
So it's just combining different modes of sustainable mobility. That's the idea.
It's the only way to conquer such a big city, because it's not easy to get from one point to another.
Mm-hmm.
Since we're very close to the end of this webinar, I'd like to continue a little bit more and ask you just one question to ask one question each of the speakers. Since all our 4 cities would like to replicate one of these measures, or a part of a measure, and this is the entire purpose of these webinars, for them to understand how it's better and easier to adapt or implement a measure entirely in their cities. I would have this question for the speakers. What has been the most challenging part until now related to the measure you have implemented? And since Madrid is already speaking, maybe we can start with Madrid and go all the way around to the other speakers. Name one of the challenges, because I am aware of the fact that you might have met a lot of challenges along the way, and yes, working with sustainable mobility, it's not easy. So
yes,
one of the biggest, yes.
Main challenge is to extend the measures we have started to other places in Puente de Vallecas. Our laboratory is very big, too big, I think.
It's too big. Our first reflection was that you choose a big area to make actions to clear to the people from Vallecas and from Madrid, because we has the goal to introduce this type of intervention from the council in all the city. The example from Vallecas is possible to practice in other time. and in the workshop with the people, the association, the NGO of Puente Vallecas said that to necessity to make the intervention to extend the pedestrian axis, Federico García Lorca now work in the center of Puente Vallecas near the M30, the highway around the central area, a similar intervention to recover a boulevard with a place from people.
Yes, living places where people can have leisure, work, practice sports, and meet.
And the people said that the priority from buses in the access to the center of Vallecas. Last year, we introduced one type of intervention in Puente Vallecas to the main in Avenida de Albufera Avenue, the main axis to connect is where Bill lives, 30,000 inhabitants, with the Madrid Central, and we introduce a lane to bicycle, to bus, a priority, and reduce the space from cars. We have only one lane for cars. In Madrid was a big debate about this type of intervention, but is the goal from the Plan A and
the Quality Climate Change Plan to reduce this space for private cars and to improve public transport and active, sustainable transportation modes.
Yeah. So, if I understood correctly, just a message you'd like to transfer to the replicating cities would be to be careful when choosing the intervention area, to be careful to choose the right area, because it's working with a big area is not easy, and you have to be able to control it when implementing the measures.
So that the actions are more visible also.
Yes, and that's okay. So that the actions exactly could be visible. Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Let's move on to Juha. What was the biggest challenge for Turku when implementing the measure you have talked about?
Yeah, I think in the beginning it was a bit difficult to find any studies about this method. At least in Finnish there weren't any, and in international languages either. I don't think we did find anything. But after all, I think it went pretty well. So we were able to get information, especially from Sweden, and there were some risks, but it went pretty well. I think the most challenging part in the future is that we would like to extend the pilot area. First of all,
to upscale.
Yeah. Now to do in the future at least the pilot area, but also to upscale it to many times as large area as this one, and then we need more money, so that's always an issue. But
so this is what happens when you're very innovative. You don't have any other good examples to learn from, so you become the good example.
Hopefully.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. And how about Ruse? Nikolai, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. Okay. Your question was, what is the biggest challenge?
Yeah, one of the biggest challenges you met along the way when implementing the two measures you talked about earlier?
Mm-hmm. Well, as I said, one of the biggest challenges is to have the acceptance of the population. So our recommendation is for when doing such measures related to people and concerning their walking and cycling habits, you should definitely try and involve them in the planning process from the very start, so that they feel that they're really involved in this. They are part of the decision-making process, and this would allow you to have their acceptance and support for the measures. And the other maybe challenge that we had here was to find this really innovative for us solutions, especially for the crosswalks. And we hope that we have found the proper solution right now, and people will be happy when we do it.
Well, there's always a place for improvement. So the first step is the most important one, and then you also learn from your implementation.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all 4 speakers, and all 3 presentations were very, very interesting, and I'm very sure that our follower cities will take a lot of knowledge back home, and they will have a lot of food for thoughts for the next days. We will wrap up all the presentations and send them to you so that you can also revisit them whenever needed. And thank you for staying with us even a bit longer than scheduled, but this was very interesting. And I wish you all happy holidays, because we're very soon heading for this period of the year. So thank you, and goodbye from my side.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
And
Thank you.
from Zagreb, we wish you all the best.
Thank you, Matja.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, thank you.
Happy holidays.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. From Madrid.
Bye.
Bye.